It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, my baby shower, with just 1 month left before meeting my child. But instead of joy, my own sister turned the celebration into a nightmare. In front of everyone, she raised her foot and kicked my 8-month pregnant belly while my mother stood silently, fueling her cruelty. Betrayed by the people who were supposed to love me the most, I collapsed to the floor, clutching my unborn child in pain and terror. But what happened next was far more shocking than anyone could have ever imagined. My name is Stella, and what happened to me was something I never imagined my own family could do. I live in Portland, Oregon. To the outside world, my life seemed peaceful. I was married to Cameron, my loving husband. We had been married for 3 beautiful years, and after so many prayers and hopes, I was finally pregnant, 8 months along. Cameron was everything I could ask for: patient, kind, and endlessly supportive. Since the pregnancy started, he had treated me like I was carrying the world itself inside me. And in many ways, I was. But not everyone shared our happiness. In my family, happiness was dangerous. My mother, Eleanor, never really saw me as her daughter. She always favored my older sister Ashley, the golden child, the perfect one. Ashley was a rising TikTok star, flaunting 500,000 followers, brand sponsorships, luxury bags, and carefully staged videos. She was beautiful, popular, and in my mother's eyes, flawless. Meanwhile, I was always the quiet one, the simple one, the disappointment. Every family gathering was filled with Eleanor's sharp comparisons. Look at Ashley, her success, her elegance. Why can't you be more like her? But this time, I had something Ashley didn't, something she secretly resented. I was about to become a mother. A few weeks ago, my world had shifted when the doctor found something during my 20-week ultrasound. Stella, there's a small defect in the baby's diaphragm, called congenital diaphragmatic hernia. We'll need to monitor the lung development carefully. His words haunted me every night. Cameron stayed strong for both of us, holding me as I cried silently. We'll get through this, he always whispered. Our baby is strong. And so are you. We chose not to tell my mother or Ashley. I knew exactly how they would react, not with comfort or love, but with judgment. Their cruelty was something I wasn't ready to face, while carrying this precious life inside me. Now, with just 1 month left, my best friend Allison had planned a beautiful baby shower to celebrate the arrival of our little miracle. But as the day approached, a deep unease grew inside me. A voice whispered inside my head, warning me that something terrible was coming. I was about to learn just how far jealousy could go. The morning of my baby shower arrived under Portland's familiar gray sky, and although everything around me appeared calm, my heart was far from it. Sitting by the nursery window, I gently rubbed my 8-month pregnant belly, feeling little James kick softly inside me, as if trying to comfort me. Cameron entered the room with his usual gentle smile, carrying a tray with my favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes and warm caffeine-free tea, always mindful of my condition. Good morning, beautiful, he said softly, placing the tray on the nightstand, trying his best to ease my nerves. I forced a small smile, but my uneasiness was too heavy to hide. Today's your special day, he continued. Let's focus on you and James. I try to stay positive, replying, I just hope they don't ruin it, Cameron. He knelt beside me, placed his hand over my belly, and whispered, They won't. I'll be right by your side, no matter what happens. You're not alone in this. His words offered brief comfort, but I could not shake off the lingering dread that something unpleasant was coming. As I got dressed, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother, Eleanor. Wear something presentable. This is an important event, Stella. Don't embarrass us again. Her cold words pierced through me like they always did. Then, moments later, another message arrived from my best friend, Allison, who had organized everything. Don't worry about them, Stella. Everything's ready and beautiful. Today is your day. I clung to her words like a lifeline. I chose to wear the soft pink maternity dress that Cameron had lovingly picked for me. It wasn't designer or extravagant, but it made me feel comfortable and, most importantly, cherished. Standing in front of the mirror, I whispered to myself, You can do this. As we drove to the hotel where Allison had prepared everything, Cameron reached over and held my hand, gently squeezing it as he said, "We'll face them together." I smiled faintly, whispering, "Thank you." On the way, I glanced at my phone and saw Ashley's latest TikTok video. There she was, posing in front of her luxury car, flashing a new designer handbag with perfect lighting and flawless makeup. The comments under her video flooded with praise. Slaying again. "You're everything. Absolute queen." While she chased fame and attention, I was preparing to welcome my child into this world, the child who meant everything to me. As we approached the hotel, my heart pounded. The weight inside me was not just from the baby, but from an overwhelming sense that today would be the day everything would change forever. As we arrived at the hotel, Allison greeted us with a bright smile and warm hug, immediately guiding us into the banquet room she had so beautifully decorated. The hall was filled with soft pink and gold balloons floating near the ceiling and elegant white tables covered in delicate baby-themed decorations. In the center of the room hung a large banner that read, "Welcome, baby James." For a brief moment, the beauty of the setting eased my nerves. Cameron whispered in my ear, "See? Everything's perfect, just like you deserve." Guests were already mingling, chatting, and smiling as they approached me with warm congratulations. Friends from my workplace, Cameron's colleagues, and a few close neighbors had all gathered. They brought thoughtful gifts, offered kind words, and created an atmosphere full of genuine love and support. For a while, it truly felt like this day could belong to me and my baby. But beneath the joy, a weight still sat heavily in my chest, knowing that my mother and Ashley had not yet arrived. I glanced at the doors repeatedly, each time hoping their absence might stretch longer. Cameron noticed my anxiety and gently squeezed my hand. "Forget them for now. Today is about you and James," he reassured me. Moments later, Allison took the microphone to officially welcome everyone. She smiled brightly and spoke with genuine warmth. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Stella and Cameron as they await the arrival of baby James. Today is about love, family, and the beautiful journey ahead." The guests raised their glasses for a toast, and for a short while, I allowed myself to enjoy the applause and good wishes. But the peace was suddenly shattered as the doors swung open with a loud push, capturing everyone's attention. There stood Ashley, dressed in a shimmering designer gown, flashing her perfect smile as if she were arriving at a red carpet event rather than her sister's baby shower. She walked in confidently, her designer heels clicking across the floor, carrying her newest luxury handbag. "Sorry I'm late," she announced loudly, making sure everyone heard her. My brand shoot ran longer than expected. You know how things get when you're balancing sponsors and content schedules. Behind her followed my mother, Eleanor, wearing her cold expression and flawless luxury attire, her sharp eyes immediately scanning me from head to toe. Without missing a beat, Eleanor delivered her first subtle attack. "Stella, couldn't you have worn something a bit more elegant for today? It's such a special occasion." My simple pink maternity dress, carefully chosen for comfort and love, now suddenly felt exposed under her judgmental gaze. I smiled politely and answered, "Thank you for coming, Mother." "Ashley." Ashley glanced around the hall, scanning the decorations and guests with a smug expression before commenting, "Well, that's cute. If it were me, I would have gone a bit grander, but it's fine." The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Many of the guests exchanged uncomfortable looks, sensing the quiet hostility radiating from my own family. Allison leaned in toward me and whispered gently, "Don't let them ruin this, Stella. This is still your day." I nodded softly, but deep down, I knew this tension was only beginning to build. Ashley hadn't come here just to celebrate. She had come with something else in mind, something far darker that none of us could yet fully see. As the guests continued chatting and enjoying the afternoon, I carefully opened each beautifully wrapped gift one by one, thanking everyone for their thoughtful presents. Tiny onesies, plush toys, soft blankets, and baby books filled the table. For a few precious minutes, it felt like a normal, happy baby shower. But Ashley couldn't resist inserting herself into every moment. Each time I unwrapped a gift, she would loudly comment, "Oh, I already have something like that. Though mine is from a premium brand, of course." Or she would glance at a guest and say, "Isn't that pattern a bit outdated? I would have chosen something more modern." Her words hung in the air like poison, making many guests shift uncomfortably in their seats. My mother, Eleanor, made her own rounds through the crowd, proudly boasting about Ashley's achievements. Ashley just secured another brand partnership. Her TikTok following keeps growing. She's approaching 1 million followers now, she told anyone who would listen, as though this entire day was somehow about Ashley's success rather than celebrating my baby. I tried to ignore them, holding on to Cameron's steady presence beside me. He stood close, his jaw tight, watching everything unfold but staying silent for my sake. Then, as the gift opening drew to a close and I finally felt some relief, Ashley suddenly stood up with a bright, forced smile. "Before we cut the cake, I have a little announcement to make." The room grew quiet as every eye turned toward her. A chill ran down my spine. Cameron immediately stepped closer to me, sensing the shift. Allison whispered urgently, "Ashley, don't do this. Not here." But Ashley smiled wider and waved her off. "Relax, Allison. This is something important for the family to hear." Cameron spoke firmly, "Ashley, stop this right now." But she had no intention of stopping. She reached into her designer handbag and dramatically pulled out a manila envelope. My heart dropped as she slowly opened it, pulling out an ultrasound photo. My ultrasound photo. My blood ran cold. "Where did you get that?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Ashley lifted the image higher, displaying it to the entire room. "Everyone, this is Stella's ultrasound. What she failed to share with you is that her baby has a medical condition called congenital diaphragmatic hernia. The doctors told her there's a high risk of complications." Gasps spread through the crowd. My face burned with humiliation as dozens of eyes stared at me, processing what Ashley had just exposed. Eleanor stepped forward with a voice filled with disgust rather than concern. "Is this true, Stella? Why would you hide something so serious from your own family?" Tears welled in my eyes as I replied, "Because it's private. It's between Cameron, my doctors, and me. We've been managing it." Eleanor's expression hardened. "Managing it? You're planning to bring a child into this world who may live with lifelong complications? That's not being strong. That's being foolish." The weight of their cruelty pressed down on me. Cameron clenched his fists, his face flushing with anger, but he remained beside me. Ashley stepped closer, her voice dripping with venom. "Let's face reality, Stella. You're about to trap yourself with a disabled child. You won't have a life, a career, or any freedom. Eventually, even Cameron will get tired of carrying your burden." I could barely hold back my tears, but I refused to break. "You're wrong," I said, my voice trembling. "This child is a blessing. No matter what happens, we will love and protect him." Ashley laughed coldly. "A blessing? Please. This isn't a blessing. It's a defective product." At that moment, something inside me snapped. "Don't you dare call my child defective," I shouted, my voice echoing through the silent room. "The only defects are in your hearts." Ashley's face twisted with fury as she took a threatening step forward. "You're pathetic, Stella. Always playing the victim, always pretending to be strong." "No, Ashley," I answered, my voice rising. "You're the one who's jealous. You can't stand that I have something you don't, real happiness." Ashley's expression shifted, her anger boiling over as she moved closer. I saw the flash in her eyes right before she raised her leg. In that frozen instant, I knew something terrible was about to happen. In that horrifying instant, Ashley's high heel crashed into my swollen belly with brutal force. The pain was immediate, sharp, and blinding. A scream ripped from my throat as my legs gave out beneath me. I collapsed to the floor, clutching my stomach with both hands, gasping for air as waves of agony shot through my body. The room erupted into chaos. Guests screamed, some rushing forward while others froze in horror. Chairs toppled over as people stumbled backward, unable to process the violence they had just witnessed. Stella. Cameron's voice cut through the noise as he sprinted across the room toward me. His face was pale, eyes wide with panic. He dropped to his knees beside me, gently lifting my head into his lap as I whimpered in pain, my tears mixing with sweat. "It hurts." "Cameron, my stomach," I gasped, trying to breathe through the searing pain. "I'm here, baby, I'm here," he whispered urgently, his voice breaking as he tried to stay calm. "Help is coming. Hold on." Around us, the guests quickly surrounded Ashley, their voices filled with anger and shock. "What have you done?" one woman screamed. "You kicked a pregnant woman. Are you insane?" Ashley stood frozen, her face pale but defiant. "She provoked me. She always plays the victim," she shouted, trying to defend the indefensible. That was the moment Cameron snapped. His eyes burned with a fury I had never seen before. Carefully laying my head on a pillow, one of the guests slid beneath me. He stood up and stormed toward Ashley with a controlled rage. The guests parted as he advanced. "You kicked my pregnant wife," he shouted, his voice shaking with fury. "She's carrying our child, and you attacked her like a monster." Without hesitation, Cameron raised his hand and slapped Ashley hard across the face. The sharp crack echoed through the silent hall as Ashley stumbled backward, clutching her cheek, her face frozen in shock. "I will never forgive you for this," he growled, his voice low and full of rage. Allison, trembling but focused, quickly pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "We need paramedics and police immediately. A pregnant woman has been assaulted. Please hurry," she spoke urgently, her voice shaking as she relayed our location. Within minutes, the piercing sound of sirens filled the air outside the hotel. The double doors burst open as paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, followed closely by uniformed police officers. "Where's the victim?" one paramedic called out. "Here. Over here," Cameron shouted, never letting go of my hand. The paramedics carefully examined me, checking my vitals and gently asking questions as they prepared me for transport. "She's in pain but stable for now. 8 months pregnant, abdominal trauma. We're moving her immediately," one of them said. As they carefully lifted me onto the stretcher, I squeezed Cameron's hand tightly. "You're coming with me," I whispered weakly. "I'm not leaving you for a second," he promised, climbing into the ambulance beside me. Meanwhile, the police officers approached Ashley, who now stood trembling and panicked. "Ashley Miller, you are under arrest for aggravated assault on a pregnant woman," one officer announced firmly, while placing her in handcuffs. Ashley's eyes widened in disbelief. "Please, this is a misunderstanding." "I didn't mean it," she pleaded. "You kicked your pregnant sister. You'll have the chance to explain yourself to the court," the officer responded coldly. The officers then turned toward Eleanor, who had been standing in stunned silence. "Ma'am, you will need to accompany us for questioning. Multiple witnesses have identified you as encouraging and instigating the attack," one officer stated. Eleanor opened her mouth to protest, but the weight of the situation finally settled on her face. As both Ashley and Eleanor were led away, the paramedics loaded me into the ambulance. Before the doors closed, I looked at one of the officers and gathered my strength to speak. "Please press full charges. I won't forgive them." The officer nodded firmly. "Don't worry, ma'am. Justice will be served." As the ambulance sped away into the night, Cameron held my hand tightly, his eyes filled with both fear and determination. "For our son, Stella, we will fight this." I nodded through the tears and pain, whispering, "We will." The ambulance raced through the streets of Portland, its sirens slicing through the night air. Cameron sat beside me, gripping my hand as if afraid to let go for even a second. His voice was soft but firm as he tried to calm my trembling body. "You're doing great, Stella. James is strong. We're almost at the hospital." The pain still pulsed through my abdomen, but knowing that Cameron was right beside me kept me grounded. I tried to focus on his voice, to block out the terror, the betrayal, and the overwhelming fear of what might happen to our unborn son. At the hospital entrance, a team of doctors and nurses, led by Dr. Ethan Parker, rushed to meet us. "We've got her," one paramedic announced as they swiftly transferred me from the ambulance to a hospital bed. Dr. Parker looked down at me with calm, reassuring eyes. "Stella, we're going to take good care of you and your baby. Just stay with us. You're both strong." As the medical team worked quickly, Cameron stood nearby, his face pale but determined. "Please save them both," he whispered as they wheeled me toward the examination room. Meanwhile, back at the banquet hall, police officers began their investigation. Detective Scott, a seasoned and composed officer, took control of the scene. Ashley sat cuffed, her face streaked with tears, trying to defend her actions. "She provoked me. She always plays the victim," Ashley cried, her voice trembling. Detective Scott's voice remained cold and professional. "You deliberately kicked your pregnant sister in front of dozens of witnesses. That is felony aggravated assault, and you will face the full consequences." Eleanor tried to intervene, her voice sharp but now laced with desperation. "Officer, this is being exaggerated. It's just a family misunderstanding." Detective Scott turned toward her, his expression hard. "Ma'am, a violent felony against a pregnant woman is not a family issue. It's a criminal offense. Based on multiple witness statements and evidence, you are being detained for conspiracy and incitement." Allison stepped forward and handed her phone to the officers. "I recorded the entire incident," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "You can see everything. Ashley's assault, Eleanor's encouragement, all of it." The officers reviewed the footage, confirming the details of the brutal attack and Eleanor's cruel remarks. Guests also lined up to give statements, providing overwhelming testimony against both Ashley and Eleanor. As Ashley was escorted out of the banquet hall, the reality of her actions began to sink in. The cameras flashing around her were no longer those of adoring fans, but of reporters capturing her public fall from grace. "This is ridiculous. I'm a public figure. Do you know how many followers I have?" Ashley shouted, trying to salvage her image. Detective Scott remained unmoved. "You can discuss that with the judge." Eleanor, now visibly shaken, was also taken into custody for questioning. As the police car doors closed behind them, the once powerful mother-daughter duo faced the beginning of their downfall. Back at the hospital, I lay in the examination room as Dr. Parker and his team ran multiple tests, ultrasounds, blood work, and fetal monitoring. Cameron sat by my side, never letting go of my hand. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Parker finally returned with a small smile. "Stella, your baby is stable. His heart rate is strong, and there's no sign of internal damage or premature labor. We'll keep you overnight for observation, but for now, both you and James are safe." Relief flooded through me, and tears streamed down my cheeks. Cameron kissed my forehead, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Thank God, you're both safe." Though the physical pain remained, the fear that had gripped my heart began to ease. But as I lay there, I knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger battle, one I was now fully prepared to fight. The morning sunlight gently filtered into the hospital room as I slowly opened my eyes, still sore but grateful to feel Cameron's steady hand wrapped around mine. His tired eyes immediately met mine, and his face softened into a smile filled with relief. "You're awake," he whispered, leaning down to kiss my forehead. "James is okay. You're both safe." I exhaled deeply, tears welling up as I whispered, "Thank God." The weight that had sat on my chest since the attack finally eased, if only slightly. A short time later, Dr. Ethan Parker entered with a calm and reassuring expression. "Stella, you and James have made it through the most dangerous part. All your tests came back stable, and your baby's development remains on track. The trauma could have caused complications, but you were incredibly fortunate." His words brought a wave of relief, and I smiled faintly, whispering, "Thank you, Doctor." Cameron placed his hand gently over mine. "You were incredible, Stella. You never gave up." As I rested, there was a knock at the door, and in walked a composed woman with confident steps and kind eyes. "Mrs. Stella Miller?" She introduced herself. "I'm Rebecca James, the district attorney assigned to your case. I'm terribly sorry for everything you've endured, but I want you to know that we are moving forward swiftly with the charges." Cameron stood and shook her hand firmly. "Thank you for coming, Ms. James," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. Rebecca continued, "The evidence against your sister and mother is overwhelming. Ashley is being charged with felony aggravated assault on a pregnant woman, along with illegal access of private medical records. Eleanor faces conspiracy and incitement charges. Between the video recordings, multiple witness statements, and your medical records, we have a solid case." I nodded, my voice trembling but resolute. "I want them held fully accountable. I've forgiven them far too many times before. This time I won't." Rebecca offered a respectful smile. "And you shouldn't. This is no longer a private family matter. It's criminal, and the law will handle it. You'll be called to testify, but the state is fully behind you." Cameron gently squeezed my hand again as I drew strength from his touch. "We'll do whatever it takes," he said firmly. Rebecca continued explaining the legal process, outlining the timeline for the trial, and assuring us that a restraining order was already being prepared, preventing both Ashley and Eleanor from having any contact with me or the baby throughout the remainder of my pregnancy and beyond. As the sun set that evening, I found myself watching James's heartbeat on the monitor beside me, feeling each tiny kick that reminded me of the life I was fighting for. The pain and fear that once overwhelmed me were now replaced by quiet strength. I whispered softly to my son, "You're safe, little one. And I promise you, I'll protect you with everything I have." Cameron leaned in and kissed my forehead once more, whispering, "We're in this together, Stella. Every step of the way." And for the first time in weeks, I closed my eyes and drifted into sleep, not haunted by fear, but carried by hope. 3 weeks later, I found myself standing outside the courthouse, my heart pounding as Cameron held my hand tightly. Allison stood on my other side, her presence a steady comfort. The news of my case had drawn media attention, and cameras flashed as we walked into the courtroom. Inside, Ashley sat at the defense table, her once carefully constructed image now shattered. The flawless TikToker who had flaunted her perfect life online now looked broken, stripped of her designer glow. Her eyes were puffy from crying, her face pale and exposed. Behind her sat Eleanor, cold and stiff, her proud posture replaced by silent humiliation. Judge Whitaker entered and called the session to order. The charges were read aloud, echoing through the silent room. Felony aggravated assault against a pregnant woman, illegal access of private medical records, conspiracy, and incitement. Rebecca James stood confidently at the prosecution table, her voice calm but piercing. She presented the state's case with clarity, outlining how Ashley not only assaulted me but illegally obtained my private medical information through her connections, violating federal privacy laws. She spoke of how Eleanor encouraged the humiliation, fostering an environment of cruelty rather than support. The defense tried to portray Ashley as emotionally unstable and overwhelmed, pointing to her struggles with infertility, financial problems, and a failing marriage. But Rebecca remained composed, presenting Ashley's calculated jealousy. Years of failed IVF treatments, mounting debt hidden behind her glamorous TikTok presence, and a growing resentment that finally exploded when I became pregnant. While infertility is heartbreaking, Rebecca stated firmly, it never justifies violence against another, especially against a sister who is carrying an innocent life. My turn to testify came, and as I sat in the witness chair, I looked directly at Ashley, who avoided my gaze. My voice trembled slightly as I began, but grew stronger with every word. I never imagined my own sister would physically attack me or put my child's life at risk. She stole my medical records to humiliate me, to shame my baby, and my mother, instead of protecting me, she stood by and encouraged it. My son is not a burden. He is a blessing. And despite everything they tried to do, they couldn't break me. The room fell into a heavy silence as I finished. Allison testified next, providing her video recording as undeniable evidence. Every cruel word, every insult, every movement of Ashley's assault was captured on tape. Dr. Ethan Parker also testified, explaining the serious medical risks that Ashley's violent attack had posed to both my life and James's. It is a miracle that no permanent damage was caused. But the danger she inflicted was very real, he stated. After all the testimonies and closing arguments, Judge Whitaker delivered his verdict with solemn authority. The court recognizes the severity of these crimes and the deliberate cruelty involved. Justice requires that accountability be fully upheld. Ashley was sentenced to 3 years in state prison, with no parole eligibility for the first 2 years, followed by mandatory anger management and community service upon release. Eleanor was sentenced to 1 year suspended, with 3 years probation and mandatory counseling and community service. Ashley broke down sobbing as the sentence was read, while Eleanor sat frozen, her carefully built social world crumbling entirely. Cameron wrapped his arm around me as we walked out of the courtroom into the bright Portland sunlight. "It's over," he whispered. "They can't hurt us anymore." I looked up at the sky, breathing in deeply, and whispered back, "This is just the beginning." 1 week after the sentencing, in the soft stillness of a Portland morning, I felt the moment finally arrive. A deep pressure surged through my abdomen, and I knew this was not a false alarm. "Cameron," I called, my voice trembling but steady. He rushed into the room instantly, his eyes wide with both excitement and concern. "It's time," I nodded, gripping his hand as another wave of contractions tightened my stomach. Without wasting a second, Cameron helped me into the car, his voice calm even as his hands trembled slightly. "You're doing great, Stella. We're almost there." The hospital staff was ready for us, having closely monitored my pregnancy since the attack. Dr. Ethan Parker met us at the entrance with a reassuring smile. "All right, Stella. Let's bring James safely into this world." The labor was long and exhausting, but Cameron never left my side. His constant words of encouragement carried me through every wave of pain. "You're stronger than you know. You've already fought so much. James is almost here." Finally, with one last push, the room filled with the sweetest sound I had ever heard, the strong, clear cry of my baby boy. Dr. Parker held him up and declared, "He's here." Tears flooded my eyes as they placed James on my chest. His tiny body was warm, his fingers curling gently against my skin as he took his first breaths. Cameron's voice broke with emotion as he whispered, "You did it, Stella. He's perfect." The relief and joy that washed over me were overwhelming. In that moment, every pain, every betrayal, every tear felt distant. All that mattered was this tiny miracle resting in my arms. Days later, we brought James home, surrounded by those who had stood by us through the storm. Allison visited with balloons and flowers, her eyes glistening with happy tears. Rebecca James, our prosecutor, stopped by with a small gift, her firm voice softened with warmth. Dr. Parker visited as well, gently checking James and offering quiet congratulations. As we gathered in the living room, laughter replaced the sorrow that once filled our lives. Allison gently said, "You truly should share your story, Stella. You've already inspired so many." I smiled and replied, "I've already started writing. A mother's strength. I want other women to know they can survive too." Cameron squeezed my hand proudly as we looked around at the small, beautiful circle of people who had become our true family. That night, standing by the nursery window, I gently rocked James as he slept against my chest. The Portland breeze whispered through the open window, and I softly spoke to my son. "You were born to be loved, and you will always be surrounded by people who truly care for you. Family isn't just blood. It's those who stand beside you through the darkest nights." Cameron walked in quietly and wrapped his arms around us both. "We made it," he whispered. "And this is only the beginning." I smiled through my tears, gazing down at James's peaceful face, and whispered, "We survived. We conquered. And now we finally live." If you enjoyed this emotional story, make sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and inspiring stories. Thank you so much for watching and supporting.